Hello everyone and welcome to Meet Me at the Table. This is Colin and today we are going to walk through 20 of my favorite single session solo games. Say that 10 times fast. What is a single session solo game, you might ask? Well, that is a game where you can throw it on the table, play through a mission, and have a full gaming experience in one sitting. These are not campaign games where you need to play it multiple times to level up your character or unlock different scenarios. Nowadays, we have so many options for great games, it can be hard to be able to commit to a single campaign game. I have playthroughs of each of these games on the channel, and I'll place links in the description below if you're interested in watching to learn more about them. Let's get into the list, shall we? Even if you haven't read the books, which luckily for me I've read about 7 of them, this game provides a wonderful puzzle to solve each time I pull it off my shelf. The fact that you hardly draw any new cards in the game after initial setup, and you simply lay out your cards of the 3 characters you're playing on the table in a grid-like fashion, you can really dig into how best to solve cases, defeat foes, and overcome obstacles. The use of the fate dice here is perfect as it adds flares of uncertainty in an otherwise very deterministic game. There are times where an initial setup may be nigh impossible to win, but with how quick it is to reset and replay, I don't mind this in the least. The fate pool mechanic in the game can be a challenge for multiplayer, which is why it is perfect for solo, as you don't mind discarding cards to increase fate. I would not hesitate to say the best way to play this game is solo due to this point alone. There's also a digital version of this game if you're interested. There are an innumerable amounts of Zombicide games, and most of them have come and gone from my collection. The Army of the Dead, though, will stay for the foreseeable future. First of all, there is no fear of missing integral pieces of content, as this was only a retail release. The entire game fits in one box, and if you know any of the other Zombicide games, that is a real feat. The game comes with 10 unique missions, and the setting is Las Vegas full of zombies. What's not to love about gambling and zombies in the same game? I appreciate that each game you'll have personal goals for some of your characters and you must complete those while also focusing on the main objective. In general, most Zombicide games are lost if even one crew member is killed, but they removed that requirement in this game, and that makes it all the better for solo. I can have characters sacrifice themselves for the team, or more likely, our crew can decide saving someone isn't worth the risk. We can get more of our cut. The only downside of this version of the game is that there's only a few versions of the zombies, and they can feel a bit samey after a few plays, but the variety in missions and the characters mitigates this concern for me. Although I never played the original game, when I saw Return to Dark Tower on Kickstarter, I knew this would be a game I would want. The toy factor alone of the tower makes me giddy every time I pull it off the shelf and play. This new version is fully cooperative, where you are trying to defeat a boss by first completing necessary objectives for the mission that you choose. There are so many different combinations for this game, as you can handpick your threats for each level, the mission, and the boss, providing you with a unique combination for each play. The centerpiece of the game, the tower, will flash and make noises at you. You'll have to drop skulls into it at the end of each turn, and inevitably it will have them spill out into a region you can't control. Your heroes will be racing across the land, completing objectives, fighting threats, removing skulls, and reinforcing at your strongholds. Each boss will bring unique effects to the missions, either making your threats more menacing or creating more obstacles for you to overcome. Once the mission has been completed, the boss will show up and it's all hands on deck as you try and take him down. Combat is a fun push-your-luck mechanic, and you need to ensure that you obtain the necessary spirit and warriors to overcome them. One word of caution, the tower, combat, and quests are all controlled by an app. If you have an aversion to this, then I would recommend avoiding this one. I always enjoy games where I can play as the bad guy taking down those pesky heroes, and that is exactly what you're doing in Keep the Heroes Out. Although I find the base game to be good, the Boss Battlers expansion is what moved this into a top 20 game for me. With the base game, it's just a simple game of attrition. You're just trying to survive 2 waves of heroes bombarding your dungeon with their smelly feet and noisy armor. The Boss Battler expansion changes the game into a boss fight after those 2 waves of obnoxious heroes. You'll need to to complete certain objectives or take out certain heroes in order for the boss to show up. Then that boss will come in wreaking havoc to your beautiful dungeon. Each boss is unique and has a unique scenario tied to their entrance into the dungeon. And once you've defeated that boss, they become a playable faction for you to try out in future scenarios. Although from a thematic standpoint, it does feel odd that the heroes would be working with these bosses, I do love that we're able to defeat a huge troll and then use them in the next scenario to knock some sense into the heroes. The card play mechanics are interesting, and you have some light deck building as well. Don't be fooled by how cutesy the game looks. It is hard to win, and I love that in a solo game. I adore games that ooze with theme, and Dawn of the Zeds oozes theme with the best of them. I initially was so intimidated by the rule set of this game with the 5 different rule books that were in the box. Once you get over this though, you will discover a game rich with tough decisions, tense combat, and even some resource management for good measure. The game comes with 6 different levels of complexity, so you can play this game even if you've only just gotten into the hobby or if you're a seasoned veteran. This is a city defense game where all you have to do is survive until the end of the event deck. Sounds simple enough, right? Wrong! The event cards will activate the zombies on certain tracks, marching them towards your city. Once this has been resolved, you'll only get 1 or 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky, actions before you have to flip the next event card. You will always have way more to do than the time to do it, and it feels just right. It feels like any zombie movie I've ever seen, where the outlook is grim, but you just have to keep fighting. Combat is a little clunky. You're using a chart to determine hits, but it also provides interesting dilemmas to the player. Should I melee attack, which could hurt my leader who maybe only has 1 or 2 health, or do I forage for more ammo and try and shoot the zombies? If you are allergic to dice, stay away from this game, as almost all actions are resolved by dice. But if you enjoy tense dice rolls and zombies attacking from all sides, this one is great. Initially, when I saw Escape the Dark Sector, I was turned off by the minimalistic black and white art. I am so glad I decided to give the game a chance, as it has shot up to one of my favorite games to play solo. Each game you'll grab 2 to 3 crew members and try and survive 3 acts of random encounters before you take on one of the 5 or 8 bosses, if you have all the mission packs, to get back your ship and escape your prison. You'll encounter both combat and non-combat encounters throughout your journey in the Dark Sector. During these encounters, which can include mutated zombies, alien-esque creatures, portals that take you to other planes of existence, you will be completing challenges using your crew dice. If you happen to find an enemy or 2, you'll initiate combat, which is the gamiest part of the game. I found that I enjoyed both combat and non-combat encounters equally. Combat is juicy enough, especially if playing with 3 crew members, to have some tactical decisions, and the non-combat encounters feels like a choose-your-own-adventure story where things just keep happening and you just have to deal with it. If you can get through all 3 acts, then you take on that nasty boss just waiting to take you down. I love how combat is resolved simultaneously with the enemies, so 1 die roll for a crew member will determine both damage and success. Even when I lose, which happens often, I feel I have had an epic adventure full of unique experiences. I cannot recommend enough though. If you pick this one up, find the 3 mission packs. They are needed for the additional content and the additional gameplay elements they provide. Although I've really enjoyed myself playing Kingdom Death Monster with Bernd, the dark setting is not really my thing. Townsfolk Tussle takes a lot of what makes KDM good and puts it into a single play session. The zany theme and the plethora of bosses to fight, especially if you include the expansion, means that no 2 games will be alike. The revised rule set is helpful in decreasing the playtime, as you only fight 3 bosses instead of 4, but you still have a great character arc. Each combat will utilize different terrain, causing crazy things to happen to your characters, such as losing an arm or being forced to hold piles of brochures for a solicitor boss, causing you to drop your weapons. The game plays out in 2 simple phases. One is the boss battle phase, where you'll roll 10-siders and try and utilize the terrain to the best of your abilities. So long as 1 townsfolk survives, you can buy some gear from the peddler, and each townsfolk will have a random event. When you get to the final boss fight, each of the bosses in the game have a unique boss fight scenario and objective. This variability is so cool, and it begs me to keep pulling the game off the shelf to see all those different endings. I love zombie miniatures as much as the next person, but there's nothing like seeing a mound of different colored cubes closing in on your party of survivors in Carnival Zombie. Even though you blast or punch these zombies away, you then have to drop them on the dreaded pile of corpses, and if any fall off, they stand back up and start hunting you down again. To make matters worse, there are boss zombies that all have unique abilities and are actual miniatures, so they stand above the rest. Defeat them and you get a benefit, but leave them alone and you will pay dearly for it. The game is broken up into a day and night phase, and as enjoyable as the day is, the real fun is the night phase when the zombies come out to play. I love how tense it feels when you draw from the bag of zombies each round. Will it be a survivor, a brute, maybe even paranoia? The game has a basic mode of play, and then there's a bunch of different scenarios, including one that uses the backside of the board. Do you want to have the ability to throw your enemies across rooms, slamming them into furniture? Do you want to solve cases by investigating clues and ultimately fight a variety of bosses? Well, then look no further than Hellboy the board game. Each game you can try different cases, bringing 1 to 4 agents and work to solve the case before time runs out. The action cube system allows a solo player to activate their agents in any order, making for fun tactical decisions. The dice system is also unique in that you can have a base color for your test, and then you can upgrade or downgrade your dice depending upon the circumstances at hand. You can spend extra actions to power up an attack, or you can have your investigation hindered by enemies in the same room. Ultimately, each case will end with an epic boss fight where you'll either have to defeat the boss to win, or maybe escape the boss from devouring your team. The game shines the most with the expansions as it provides more than just 6 base cases, and you can change the minion types for even more variety. Set in the early days of World War II, Halls of Hegra places you as the commander of Norwegian troops and volunteers preparing for a siege in an abandoned fortress. My favorite part of this game is how it is broken into 3 different unique phases. The first phase is all about mobilization. You're trying to convince the local townsfolk to join the cause while you scavenge for resources. Phase 2 is when the German platoons first begin their siege on the fortress. You will constantly battle with having sufficient forces to withstand the German attacks while also obtaining the necessary supplies to survive. The third and final phase of the game is when the full-blown siege begins. This is a fight of attrition where you simply need to last until the end of the game, or die trying. Although each phase feels unique, they flow together beautifully and provide you with a story to tell. You'll be shoveling snow, sending expeditions out to gather resources who have to evade German patrols, and you'll need to man the walls as the siege begins. There's worker placement mechanics, bag building mechanics, random events, all the things I love in an adventure-style game, but with a setting that is unique to me personally. I feel every loss of one of my troops as they lay in our sick beds, and you want to save them all even though you know you can't. I don't pull this game off the shelf often due to the time length of the game, but each time I do, I have a memorable experience. What more can you ask for in a game? Exploring the mythos is something that is always enjoyable, but once I decided to pick up Arkham Horror 3rd Edition with all the expansions, this became one of my favorite ways to investigate. Each case brings you through a codex of cards that shapes your investigation. There are items to buy, enemies to fight, gates to close, and clues to be found. The game utilizes a somewhat archaic D6 mechanic where 5s and 6s are successes, yet the ambiance and the emergent story that occurs when playing makes up for those older mechanics. I find that I really appreciate how the neighborhoods work, where clues are shuffled in with the top 3 encounter cards so you know where you need to search, yet you always have to push back the mythos by defeating enemies and removing doom on the board. Be prepared for tons of dice rolling goodness in this one. I may have some bias for this game due to the theme, but if I am looking for a unique one-off Lord of the Rings experience, I'll look no further than War of the Ring, the card game. Although best at 4 players, the solo is still a fantastic choice for a Tolkien enthusiast. You can play through the entire saga in one sitting, or you can play some of the shorter scenarios if you prefer, focusing on different parts of Middle-earth. The game plays over 2 different locations: the path cards, which are essentially the path of the Fellowship, and then the battlefields where you can deploy armies and specific characters to defend and fight. All the abilities of the characters feel very appropriate, and I find myself just enjoying my own version of the Lord of the Rings saga. The best mechanic in the game is how cycling works. Each card you play from your hand, you must cycle another card from your hand, so you have agonizing choices every turn. You also have the ring that you can use, and it's calling to you each round to utilize it and draw more cards, but sometimes those points are just what you need to win the battle against the Shadow. Do note, if you do plan to play this mostly solo, you will need the Against the Shadow expansion, and although the game plays similar to competitive, it's certainly not the same game. I have always been a fan of hand management in games, and in Gears of War, your hand is your life. As you traverse through different missions, you'll be playing cards to the table to activate your weapons, search for ammo, or complete objectives. Each card has a dual use as well, where you may be able to guard against an attack, or follow your fellow COG members across the board, or even add additional dice for defense. The kicker is each time you play a card, you are lowering your life by 1, and you only draw 2 cards each turn, but you must play 1 card, so you heal very slowly. The AI in this game was remarkable when it first came out in 2011. Now it's at your standard level, but still works quite well. You will never have enough ammo, and the enemies are relentless, but with clever card play and ensuring no COG is left behind, you have a good chance at completing the missions. Fantasy Flight only made 1 small expansion for the game, but there are tons of fan-made missions on BGG. The game is now sadly out of print, but usually there's used copies out in the wild. Most games on this list are about defeating or destroying the baddies, but not this one. In Leviathan Wilds, you're trying to free the large Leviathans by removing crystals from their bodies. In order to do this, you have to climb on top of them and attack these crystals. That is easier said than done. Each turn, you can set 1 card into your active slot, which lets you know how many action points you have for that turn. You will then climb, jump, glide, strike, rest, and fall on the Leviathan until either you destroy all the crystals or one of the climbers are defeated. The game has a few basic actions, but what makes it stand out to me is the grip mechanic and all the free actions. The grip mechanic has to do with your deck. If ever your deck is empty, you fall until you hit the ledge or you get to the bottom of the map. This means you have to constantly be concerned about what's left in your deck and rest often to replenish it. On top of that, all of your action cards have free actions you can use during other players' turns or even your own to move around the Leviathan and help your friends. The game escalates each round by having more and more of the enemy cards flipped to their higher aggression side. What is so cool is that since there's only 5 cards for the Leviathan, you start to know what actions to expect. However, just when you're prepared for that specific card, you trigger the stronger version of the ability and you get wiped from the map. There are 17 Leviathans in the base game and more are coming with the expansion. Each Leviathan feels unique due to the Leviathan action cards and the map itself. I've played all 3 versions of the Killforth games and love them all. However, I do enjoy the 3rd iteration Call of Killforth the most for a few reasons. During this game, you will be completing your own personal saga as you gear up to take on the Ancient One. This game has one of the best ramp-ups of any of the games that I've played. You start with just 1 basic ability and a rumor in your hand. You'll be sneaking into new locations, hoping you can find clues on how to complete your saga. All the while, the Ancient One will be placing plot cards all over the landscape. After you begin to develop your own saga, you'll become more and more powerful, finding allies and items, spells and weapons that will make you stronger and braver and even bolder. By the end of the game, you are no longer sneaking, but rampaging across the landscape, clearing out plots, and sizing the Ancient One up for the final battle. Now, all 3 games of this series does this, but not all of them have resources that you can gather like Call of Killforth. You also have ship tokens that you can encounter, and I personally enjoy the theme of Call of Killforth the most. Any of the Killforth series, though, won't do you wrong. Want to be Lando Calrissian, flying your ship from planet to planet, making seedy contracts and selling illegal cargo? Or how about IG-11, finding bounties and turning them into credits and fame? Look no further than Star Wars Outer Rim. In this game, you are racing against an AI to score 10 fame points before they do. You can obtain fame in many different ways, completing jobs, completing bounties, delivering cargo, purchasing luxury items, or even just destroying patrols. The base game is fine, but once you obtain the expansion, it allows for each AI player to have unique action cards and provides rules for the AI to play as a bounty hunter character, which provides a lot more replayability. You will be able to buy a better ship, upgrade it with mods, pick up some crew, and maybe even find some weapons or armor for yourself along the way. The gameplay loop is simple enough, but you will have a plethora of choices on each turn. This is by far one of my favorite Star Wars solo games to date, if only Rebellion had a true solo mode. What better solo game is there than one where you're stranded on an island trying to survive? This is Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Island. Although there are many iterations of this game, the crux of the game is the same, and that is to survive. Once you learn how to survive, then you can begin to complete your mission objectives. Castaways, the first scenario, will teach you just that. After you can consistently win that scenario, the game opens up. If you have the adventure book, there are tons and tons and tons of scenarios for you to play in this game. It is quite a unique experience in that it is an adventure game that utilizes the worker placement mechanic. As you place your workers, you have to decide if you will use your entire day doing that single action, or if you want to split up and accomplish 2 different tasks. If you decide to take on 2 tasks, you're not guaranteed to succeed at your action and may have an adventure or even get wounded. But if you only do the guaranteed actions, you will never survive. Such a simple yet effective mechanic to make you feel the pressure of not having enough time to do everything. Should I fight the beast I found with only a level 1 weapon? Or should I build a shelter? What if I don't have enough food? The basic mechanics of the game are wonderful, and then the different scenarios are like icing on the cake. This one will never leave my collection. Modularity is the name of the game when it comes to replayability for a single session solo game. Cthulhu Death May Die is one of the most modular games on this list, and it works so well. You can choose any mission with any Elder One and smash them together to create a unique experience as the mission cards combine with the Elder One's cards. The game plays out in 2 stages. The first stage, you're trying to disrupt the ritual of the Elder One, and that is determined by the mission. Once this has happened, you then move to stage 2, which is killing the Elder One. To do that, though, you have to defeat different stages of the Elder One, and all that time the Elder One is growing stronger and has more abilities. Not to mention, you as an investigator are starting to go insane as your insanity track grows. This is a double-edged sword, though, as you gain additional abilities as your insanity track increases. But that also means you're closer to death. Almost every game of this comes down to a few dice rolls with tons of dice being chucked and lots of cheers or boos at the table. I play this game every month for a reason. No matter if you win or lose, you'll have a great time defeating cultists, going insane, and maybe, just maybe, defeating the Elder One along the way. If there's one thing that I love more than anything, it is the idea of exploring different planets and coming across phenomenons that surpass our understanding as human beings. Unsettled is a game version of what I dreamed about as a kid, and that is exploring unknown planets and trying to survive. Not trying to take over the planet or turn it into some sort of terraformed Earth, but to explore the planet and see its wonders and horrors. Each game you can explore one of the 10 planets, completing one of 3 different tasks as you traverse, investigate, explore, and survive on these alien worlds. The designers did an outstanding job thinking of unique experiences for each planet, providing you with a basic rule set, and then as you explore, you must try and navigate those rules to complete your objectives. There are many surprises on these planets and ideas that are so foreign to us as humans, we are unable to describe what is happening. The writing is cheeky and fun and is one of the main reasons I enjoy this game so much. In our not so distant future, I hope we are able to explore the many planets that are in our galaxy and beyond, the same way the designers have you explore the worlds in Unknown, with a little less of us dying, of course. Whenever I pull this game off the shelf, the amount of pure joy that ensues is somewhat embarrassing. Mage Knight is the epitome of a solo game full of juicy decisions from the very first turn of the game. There aren't many different scenarios for this game, but the only one you need to play is the Conquest scenario, taking down 2 cities within 3 days and 3 nights. To do this, you must manage your hand wisely, as you will end your day once your deck runs out. You'll also need to level up, which is done by defeating rampaging monsters, taking down keeps, and defeating mages. You may find a beast lair, or even a few deep mines that you can dig for crystals. The gameplay is so rich, and so are the rules, so be ready for a bit of of a learning curve with this one. Once you play it enough though, I can go months at a time without playing and all the rules flow back to me just like riding a bike. I will never forget the first time I took down a city. I felt like I was unbeatable until I got to the second city and gained 15 wounds in one fight. We all know what that's like. If you take your time and focus on simple goals first, you'll find that the rule set becomes second nature. Once this happens, the experience of taking down 2 cities within 6 rounds is nothing short of amazing. If that gets too easy, then either increase the levels or, hey, better yet, turn one into a mega city. You can even take down Volcare with the expansions. I am also quite excited to see what the expansion from WizKids will provide to this game. Well, there you have it, my friends. 20 amazing games that could keep me busy for years on end. Let me know some of your single session solo games that you enjoy. As always, I'd like to give a huge shout out to our patrons and subscribers. It's because of you that Barrett and I do what we do here on this channel. And if you'd like to see what Barrett and I have coming next, then I need you to meet me at the table. Goodbye, everyone.